As the governor pointed out, voters stepped up in 2010 to fund education, but some say it didn't safeguard that funding. Here to discuss the proposal for making school funding permanent is Ann-Eve Pedersen, who heads the Quality Education and Jobs Initiative. Welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
Is your proposal tantamount to establishing a permanent dedicated fund for education?
It will. Prop 204, Quality Education and Jobs, will establish permanent dedicated revenue for education. And the key piece here is revenue that the legislature cannot cut. So what we're doing is something that was not done with Prop 100. We are putting this money in a lockbox, and the legislature cannot go in and raid these funds for anything else. They must be spent as voters direct on education, and this is education across the spectrum, K-12, vocational education, universities, community colleges, and GED programs.
And you say a lockbox that the legislature can't touch. Is that the reason that this is needed, because you think the legislature takes money away from education?
Well, our legislature, unfortunately, has just a dismal record on funding education. Arizona always ranks among the lowest per pupil funding states in the country, and we led the nation, along with South Carolina, in the depth of our cuts. We cut 24% over a 4-year period. So unfortunately, the people of Arizona, education is their top funding priority, but they cannot trust the legislature to adequately fund education. And that's why this citizens initiative is so necessary.
Governor Brewer says she's worried about this because it doesn't allow for an undoing if that were necessary. Is that a safeguard that's needed here?
You know, I have to tell you that the public doesn't want this undone. They are desperate for a solution to education in Arizona. They want a permanent solution to this problem. They don't want something coming back to them every 5 years, 10 years. They want a fix. And so that's what we're providing. And I know the governor doesn't like the fact that it takes control away from the legislature, but frankly, the public doesn't trust the legislature. And that's the reason that we had to move forward with this. It's the number one question we're asked is, how can you assure me that this money will be spent as voters direct and not how the legislature wants? And so we crafted it very specifically so that, as I mentioned, there's a lockbox. It must be spent as voters direct.
Now, the governor also says that education funding has improved in the current fiscal year from what it was, which were a lot of cuts over several years. What's your assessment of where we are with that now?
Well, we are still, again, I think below bare bone basic funding for our schools, for our classrooms, for our students. And what happened was the governor came in and requested almost $300 million from the legislature for this coming year. The legislature initially just zeroed her out and said, no, we're not giving you anything for education. And, you know, eventually they reached a compromise, but it was about $85 million, which is much, much lower. The legislature cut $1 billion from K-12 education over 4 years, even though we were one of the lowest funded states in the union per student. And the problem with this is that it's making it not only bad for school children, but it's horrible in terms of business climate. So what we need is we need a legislature out there championing education and the need to invest in it rather than divesting in it, because businesses aren't going to come here. It's the number one concern that they give when we try and convince businesses to locate in Arizona is they look at the numbers and it's just clear as day that we are not making a proper investment in education.
The coalition that's trying to put this onto the ballot and get it passed includes businesses and some other of what the opposition is calling special interests who could benefit from the results of such passage of this proposition. What do you say to that?
Well, the coalition, it's a volunteer-led coalition, and I'm the president of a parent organization, and we initiated this almost a year ago, more than a year ago, because we were concerned about what we were seeing in our children's classrooms. We were concerned about the attitude at the legislature, a seeming hostility toward funding education. And so I can tell you that this is really a grassroots-led effort with parents and students and educators at the forefront, along with business leaders, because businesses recognize, again, that if we do not fund education, we are going to have a horrible business climate in Arizona. And if we want the jobs, of today, but also of the future, we need some industries to come to Arizona. We need to diversify our economy, and they just won't come unless we make this investment.
Ann-Eve Pedersen of the Quality Education and Jobs Initiative, thanks for speaking with me.
Thank you.